In this session, we're going to take a look at how to create blog posts. What we're looking at here is called the Admin Archive page. It lists existing posts so that you can manage them. By default, it shows 20 at a time, but you can optionally change that to show more. In the top right, we have the Screen Options tab. Similar to the dashboard, there are checkboxes to allow us to see things in this archive, as well as to show how many posts at a time. There are checkboxes here next to the posts, and you can do bulk actions. You can edit as a group, or you can move to trash. On individual ones, you can edit, quick edit, trash, or view. Quick edit is what you get when you choose to edit bulk. If I click this, it just drops this down and I can change a few things about it, but not everything. I can't change the content and things like that. If you do edit with bulk, then it's very similar, except your changes apply to all of the posts that you selected. To create a new post, there are 3 links on this page. In the left, there's Add New. Then on this page at the top, there's Add New. And then, as always, in the drop-down in the admin bar, there's New Post. This is the New Post page, and we'll go over each of the boxes on this page. First, I want to open the Screen Options tab and take a look at what's in there. Right now, we're looking at Format, Categories, Tags, Featured Image, and that's it. But we can look at Excerpt, Send Trackbacks, Custom Fields, Discussion, Slug, and Author. And I turn them all on so that we can take a look. We can also set this to be 1 column or 2. Right now it's set at 2. I greatly prefer 2 as it makes it much easier to get at some of the smaller boxes. But if you're on a narrow device, you may want 1 column. So here at the top is our title bar. This is pretty self-explanatory. You put in the title of your post. Below that is the content box. This is where you type the content of your blog post. This box is a WYSIWYG editor. That means what you see is what you get, so that you don't have to know HTML if you don't wish to. If you do wish to, there's a tab here at the right called Text, and you can edit it. And you can edit the HTML directly, or you can stick with visual. We'll go over the finer points of this editor in another session. I don't know if you caught it, but just now, WordPress did an autosave for me. Here at the bottom of the editor, it says Draft saved at 2:33:18 p.m. If I were to close this right now, without saving it, but come back, it would say, hey, you have an unsaved draft. Would you like to continue to edit it? Very handy. Additionally, WordPress now can store this information right in your browser rather than on the server. So if you lose your connection without having saved, your browser can still pull it out for you. I know a great many writers that bless this feature often. Another thing that happens with the first autosave is that the permalink is created, and that's right here under the title. This is the web address of this post. If you wish, you can change it by clicking Edit and typing in anything you wish. If you choose something that already exists, it'll put a -2 after it. There's a button here right above the editor called Add Media. This gives you access to your media library. You can either add media from the library or put media into the library and then include it in your editor. We'll go over that in another post as well. Below the content area is the excerpt. Excerpts are not used in every theme, but they are available in every theme. This is an area for you to give a short description of your post. If you don't put anything in here, it makes one for you using the first 55 words of your post. The use of this excerpt, as I mentioned, is based on your theme and whether or not it wants to use it. Sometimes they simply never get rendered on the front end. This next box is called Send Trackbacks. A trackback is a way for you to say to another site, I just wrote about your post. You would get a URL from their site and put it in this box, so that when you save this post, it tells their site, hey, I just wrote about you. And then their site can list trackbacks on their own site. This is absolutely optional. Trackbacks aren't nearly as popular as they used to be, but they're here and available for you. The next box is called Custom Fields. This allows you to just create a field of anything you want. You could put in movie title. So if you did a post about movies, you could put in a movie title field. You put movie title in the name and anything you want in the value. Now, custom field usage is heavily based on your theme. So if you have a theme that doesn't print custom fields, it doesn't do you any good to create them. So custom fields are usually used with specific themes, and the theme creator makes it plain that you need to use custom fields. If you don't have a theme that does that, you probably don't need custom fields. The discussion box allows you to manage whether or not comments are allowed on this post, regardless of your global settings in the WordPress settings area. So if you have them off everywhere, you can turn them on just for here. Or if you have them on everywhere, you can turn them off just for here. The same goes for trackbacks and pingbacks. This is similar to what we talked about above, but if you do not allow trackbacks, then people can't get a URL from you to ping from their site. Below that is the slug. A slug is a unique identifier for your post. it's usually the same as this permalink right here, just this part in yellow. Unless you change something, it's going to be that. The slug is practically never seen on the front end, and you usually never need to change it. But in a pinch, you have the opportunity here to do that. And lastly in this column is the author. This is useful if you have someone doing writing somewhere else and then delivering a document to the editor who then puts it on here. The editor can put the author as the actual author rather than the person creating this post. Now most of these boxes are here because I chose them in the screen options panel. I'm going to turn most of them back off. And now that first column is much, much simpler. This is what it looks like by default, and probably what you'll end up leaving it like. Now let's look at the right column. The first box is called the Publish box, and it does a great number of things. In the top is an option to save as draft. This is similar to the autosaves that I mentioned. It's just doing it manually. Then there's a Preview button. Let's click it and see what happens. It opens in a new tab and shows you what your blog post is going to look like. It does some pretty cool things though. If you go back and change it, and click Preview again, it merely reloads the existing tab. That way you don't end up with a whole bunch of new tabs and you can't figure out which preview you're looking at. Here we have status. Right now it's in draft because I've never clicked Publish. Your options right now are pending review and draft. Some roles in WordPress, like author, cannot publish. They can only set to pending review, and then the editor or administrator is alerted and they can come in here and publish. We'll leave it as draft for right now. Then there's visibility. You can be public, password protected, or private. Password protected means that anyone can see that it exists, but they can only read it by putting in a password. Private means that it appears to not exist at all unless you're logged into the site. If you're the only site author, then it doesn't make much sense to make private posts, unless they're for your own use. However, if you've built a community and you have a number of people who are subscribers, then you can set a post to private and only they can read it. Under public is stick this post to the front page. That makes it a sticky post. That means it always stays on the front page, rather than scrolling through by date. Password protected gives you a little text field to type in your password. It's not super secure. Somebody who really wants to crack into it can probably do it without too much trouble, but it stops the average passerby from snooping. Lastly is the Publish field. This allows you to set the date and time at which this is published. You can backdate it and say, I actually wrote this last week. If you actually did start it last week, but you want to publish it today, you can change it to have today's date. And you can also future posting it, makes it so that it exists and it's in here, but it is not visible on the front end until that date and time pass, and then it just magically appears, as if you had written it then. This is handy if you want to write a collection of posts to be released at specific dates and times, without you having to think about it. And then here we have the option just to move this right to the trash and say, I don't want to do this anymore. Here's the Publish button. I'm going to click it and see how things change. Now at the top here it says Post Published, View Post, and over here on the right, status has changed to Published. And our options now are Pending Review, Draft, and Published. If I set it back to Draft, it will remove it from the website. If I set it to Pending Review or Draft, it will remove it from the website. Below the Publish box is the Format box. This behavior is similar to Tumblr. If you're familiar with that, this should look familiar. You can say your content is a standard blog post, or an aside, an image, video, audio, quote, link, or gallery. WordPress itself doesn't really treat these very differently, but themes that pay attention to this format can render them quite differently, so that you can put giant graphical quotes around a quote, or a big anchor image next to a link, or a YouTube icon next to a video, or something like that. But that's heavily theme-based. If your theme doesn't support these, they're not really going to look any different from a regular post. If your theme does support these, they can be pretty handy. Below that are your categories and tags boxes. Categories and tags are ways to organize your content. Categories are pretty self-explanatory. You can just make up all the categories you want. Tags are similar, but they're more commonly made up on the fly. So you might have a category of Hawaii, but this post might be tagged snorkeling or fishing or surfing or something like that. Again, how these things are rendered and used on the front end depends on your theme. And the last box here is featured image. This allows you to associate an image with this post. How that gets rendered on the front end is entirely based on your theme, but it makes an image available to the theme if it wants to print it next to your title on the archive or whatever. There's a new box here, since we've started this post, called Revisions. Revisions are versions of this post from backwards in time. This allows you to go back and say, I want to recover the post as it existed 2 days ago. We'll look at revisions more closely in another video. That's all there is to the post admin page. Now that it's been created, we can view it, and there's the single. On the left is the sidebar, and it shows recent posts with Hello World, the one that came with WordPress, and my new blog post. There are archive pages as well. This is the monthly archive for December. The admin post page provides a great deal of power and flexibility, but practically no one uses all the parts of it. As you begin using WordPress, you'll find out which parts you like. Maybe you like categories more than tags, or tags more than categories, or both of them equally. Maybe you turn comments on or off based on the post all the time. Maybe you get a theme that uses post formats, or maybe you don't. As you use it, it will become more familiar to you, and you'll see how things work.